Well, I'm here with the notorious iPhone 14 Pro. You may have heard of it, just came out recently. Battery life, not so good. And this is really interesting because I've been testing it extensively for the last couple of days. I've tested it with Wi-Fi off, I've tested with always display off, I've tested with auto brightness off. Here's what I'm getting. So I'm averaging about 5 hours of screen on time with all the settings kind of as they are with Wi-Fi off using 5G. If you're on Wi-Fi all day, it actually gets much better battery, and that's because the 5G apparently does drain the battery quite a bit. Even though we're in 2022, the verge of 2023, battery life still being drained by 5G. So whenever it comes to talking about suggestions for how to get better battery life, that's always something a lot of people kind of opt into and say, okay, just turn off 5G. That's the biggest battery drainer. However, 2G and 3G effectively are shut off, don't work anymore. Pretty much all the phone calls are made over voice over LTE, 4G, 5G LTE, stuff like that. So LTE is still more battery efficient depending on what type of 5G you're using. If it's the extended network, it's a little bit better on the battery life, but still Wi-Fi is always going to be your best bet for your battery savings. So with Wi-Fi off, I'm seeing between 4.5 and about 5 hours of screen on time, about 12 hours of usage. So I'm taking it off the charger about 8 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning. It's in the 20% or 15% category by the time I get to 6 o'clock in the evening, which is very poor for an iPhone. And the thing is the iPhone 13 had tremendously better battery, but even it's not getting good battery. So I don't think this is entirely a iPhone 14 Pro issue. I think largely it's an iOS 16 issue. I was talking to some other friends, even I noticed this in the dev beta and the beta for iOS 16, which I was testing out for the last couple of months with my iPhone 13 Pro. The phone was getting more warm, it was getting hotter, it was burning up a lot more battery. Battery life went to pants. And the battery life with my iPhone 13 Pro was tremendously, crazy good. Everyone had been reporting all year that the 13 Pro and Pro Max were probably the best phones for battery life, basically in the history of mankind. Definitely the best battery life ever in an iPhone. So iOS 16 definitely did put a ding in that. I don't think necessarily the A16 is tremendously more battery damaging than the A15. I think iOS 16 is largely a culprit. Maybe the modem that they're using is draining some more battery power, just how it's working. Maybe it needs to be reined in a little bit. And the always-on display. Now, the always-on display, I thought it would be a tremendously more, a worse battery drain on the battery. But really, I only got about an hour difference. I mean, still, I was getting about 5 hours of screen on time. 5 hours screen on time is not good for an iPhone Pro series at all. This is the worst it's been in probably about 2 years. Now, if you're on Wi-Fi, I'm getting about 7.5 hours of screen on time. That's pretty good. That's better than I get with any Android phone, but still, with my iPhone 13 Pro with iOS 15 last year, I was getting 10 hours of screen on time. I could go all day long. The iPhone 13 Pro was the first iPhone, really the first phone ever. I never had battery anxiety, never had battery issues. I would just use it and then charge it up whenever I would see that I was low. It wasn't necessarily, oh, let me plug this in at 6, 7 o'clock in the evening to make sure I can get through tonight and then plug it back in. And the iPhone 14 Pro, it just hasn't been that great. And I'm hoping that they will make some tweaks, they being Apple, to iOS 16 to improve that. Now, one thing I do want to talk about, there are ways you can make it better. Now, you can go into your settings, you can go into your general settings, you can go to connection settings, and you can, with the cellular stuff, you can turn off 5G if you really want to do that. However, that could significantly make the phone signal worse in your area depending on where you live, because a lot of the newer network is all 5G. If you're out in an older area where you used to not have good signal until 5G came along, you could seriously be diminishing your connectivity and your ability to make phone calls and use the internet. So if you're in a built-up area like I am, where we have really established 4G LTE, you'll likely get better battery life, and that could be helpful for you. That's not something I really recommend doing. I don't think with any phone, even with the worst battery life that we get on other Android phones, I don't say go turn off 5G. I really don't feel like we should have to do that at this point in time. But nature of the beast, yes, it does suck up more battery. You can turn off always on display. That'll save you a little bit. It might give you maybe an extra hour of screen on time. Now, some people were reporting it was only draining like 4% overnight. I haven't found that. I do feel like it burns up more than that. But as far as hard numbers, it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be, but definitely turning off Wi-Fi and just using your LTE or your 5G alone is going to use up more battery. So I would say if you do have Wi-Fi available anywhere, that's going to be able to give you the best battery experience, period, for your phone, because the Wi-Fi uses a lot less energy than trying to be connecting and using the towers for everything. So what I want to do now, we'll go into the phone settings. I'm going to show you how you can determine what kind of battery life you're getting, because Apple is very, very misleading with the way that they do their battery settings, and it's very frustrating trying to look at it and trying to track it down. Let's go in. I'll show you how to do this real quick, and then we'll move on. All right, I'm going to show you some tips and tricks for your battery stuff here. I will show you how to turn off 5G. So you're going to do this in your settings. So once you're in your settings, then you want to go to cellular. In cellular, you're going to go to cellular data options. So click on that, and you can see right here where it says voice and data. Tap on that. Mine's on 5G auto. You can do 5G on for all the time. That's probably going to be the worst. And then you can do LTE. So if you put it on LTE, it will only use LTE. It'll shut off the 5G antenna. This will save you quite a bit of actual battery power. So that's probably the biggest battery savings you're going to get. That's something you can do. And another thing that you can do is going to be in the display settings. So in the settings here, go to display settings. So in here, if it's not already on it, use dark mode. If you have light mode on, this burns up more battery. As you can see, it's very bright, uses a lot of bright colors, bright white pixels. It burns up more battery. Use dark mode. If you use dark mode, that will help save you stuff. Now, it's already on adaptive brightness, which is in the accessibility settings. If you turn that off, I would recommend turning it back on. You can even use True Tone. Now, True Tone can save you a little bit of battery just because of the way it adapts things with the ambient lighting conditions. It's not the biggest battery saver in the world. I don't like it because I don't like the yellowish brown kind of hue that it gives to it, but that is something that can help just a little bit. Night shift. This can actually help quite a bit. So if you use night shift, it will tone things down. It'll turn down the blue light, and it kind of makes the screen more flat. It'll actually save on the battery life at nighttime. So if you turn this on, as you can see, it does change everything with the color and how the screen looks. That'll save you a little bit on battery life if you use that at nighttime. And that's pretty much it here. Now, also always on display. This is the big one. So this is going to be on by default. This right here, your always on display, this is what it looks like. So if you have your always on display on, it's going to eat up your battery life. I've had mine turned off. It saves a little bit. And then also look at your auto lock here. Now, I would recommend not having it on 5 minutes because that leaves it on for a long time. So when it comes to this, what it means is when it comes to this time, the screen will automatically shut off. So if you have it on 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute, the longer it's on, the longer as you leave your phone on standby, like if you're doing something, you set it down, it's going to keep the screen on. The screen being on is what burns up the most battery on your phone. So if you have it on like 1 minute, that's probably pretty ideal. And yeah, that's about it as far as what I can think of for battery saving stuff. There's just not a whole lot here. Unfortunately, Apple has all their stuff built into the software to really try and give you the maximum battery life. Really, you start losing battery life when you turn those features off, and that's really how they have it set up. But those couple of things should help out. Now, there's one last couple of things you can do here. If you really need battery in a pinch, you can turn on low power mode, and that shuts off stuff in the background. It actually doesn't run too much terribly worse, but it does help save on your battery life. Really kind of shuts down stuff you're not doing, and it is a good way to help preserve your battery life. Now, this is how you're going to determine what your actual screen on time is. See, you have the last charge thing here, and it usually shows last charge at 100%. It doesn't tell you what your overall screen on time is for the day. Now, if you look at this, it's kind of misleading because it tells you what the screen on time. I'm not getting 11 hours. That's telling you how much it's on in a 24-hour period, not what you got for that charge. To determine that, you have to look at the last time you had 100% charge, and mine was 95%, but it doesn't matter. So you go to the peak right here, And see, when you tap on it, you can look at the 2-hour window. So in this window, 32 minutes of screen on time. The next window, 3 minutes of screen on time. The next window, 16 minutes. So if you add them all up till you get to the last one, add all those up, and then that tells you how many minutes, divide it by 60, and that will tell you what your screen on time is for that last charge. So hopefully that's helpful. Just a little tip and a trick so you can know exactly what your battery usage is, because some people are like, oh, I got 12 hours of screen on time. Well, you got 12 hours of screen on time in a 24-hour period, and not on that one charge. So slow down, hero. And yeah, that's all I got. So we'll go ahead and cut away from here and finish out the video. All right, so that's all I've got. Hopefully that was helpful. Hopefully you liked the little trip into the settings to see what it's like to determine your own battery life, maybe adjust some of the other settings to try and improve some stuff. A couple little things in there to suggest, but that's really kind of problematic when it comes to Apple. They have everything that you can imagine turned on for your battery savings possible. Like, they have it all locked down. They want the software to control your entire experience. So there's not really a whole lot of settings. It's not like with Android phones where you can really change a lot of things to improve the battery, but at least a few tips and suggestions, and I hope that those are helpful. So that's all I got. If you have any questions or comments, please go down to the comment section. I will get back with you. If you enjoyed the video, if you found this helpful, then please hit the like and the subscribe button and little notification bell if you want updates when new videos come out, because I put out videos every single day on a lot of different topics. So yeah, that's all I got. As always, thanks for being here. I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you guys next time.